Mataji, I'm not sure what the invocation is.
Om Namo Bhagavate
Oh, yes.
Vasudevaya.
Okay. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Kuram Pumso Vinirbinnam Mitro Lokesha Avisat Payunam Sena Yena Sau Visargam Pratipadyate.
The evacuating channel separated. Excuse me. The evacuating channel separately became manifest, and the director named Mitra entered into it with partial organs of evacuation. Thus, the living entity us are able to pass stool and urine.
हस्तावास्य विनिर्भिन्नाव इन्द्रास्वार्पतिराविशत् वातायां सेन पुरुषो याया वृत्तिं प्रपद्यते.
Thereafter, when the hands of the gigantic form separately became manifested, Indra, the ruler of the heavenly planets, entered into them, and thus the living entity is able to transact business for his livelihood.
पारावस्य विनिर्भिन्नौ लोकेषु विष्णुराविशत् गात्या स्वां सेन पुरुषो याया प्राप्यं प्रपद्यते.
Thereafter, the legs of the gigantic form separately became manifest, and the demigod named Vishnu, not the personality of Godhead, entered with partial movement. This helps the living entity move to his destination.
बुद्धिं चास्य विनिर्भिन्नां वागायसोदिष्णमाविशत् बोधेनां सेन बोधव्यं प्रतिपत्तिर्यतो भवेत्.
When the intelligence of the gigantic form separately became manifest, Brahma, the Lord of the Vedas, entered into it with the partial power of understanding, and thus an object of understanding is experienced by the living entities.
हृदयं चास्य निर्भिन्नं चन्द्रमादिष्टमाविशत् मनसां सेन येनासौ विकिर्यां प्रतिपद्यते.
After that, the heart of the gigantic form separately manifested itself, and into it entered the moon demigod with partial mental activity. Thus, the living entity can conduct his mental speculations.
आत्मानं चास्य निर्भिन्नम् अभिमानो विसत्पदं कर्मणां सेन येनासौ कर्तव्यं प्रतिपद्यते.
Thereafter, the materialistic ego of the gigantic form separately manifested itself, and into it entered Rudra, the controller of false ego, with his own partial activities by which the living entity transacts its objective actions.
सत्त्वं चास्य विनिर्भिन्नं महान् उपाविशत् चित्तेनां सेन येनासौ विज्ञानं प्रतिपद्यते.
Thereafter, when his consciousness separately manifested itself, the total energy, Mahat Tattva, entered with his conscious part. Thus, the living entity is able to conceive specific knowledge.
शीर्ष्णो स्यादौ धरापद्भ्यां काम्नाभिरुद्यपद्यत गुणानां वृत्तयो येषु प्रतीयन्ते सुरादयः.
Thereafter, from the head of the gigantic form, the heavenly planets were manifested, and from his legs, the earthly planets, and from his abundance, the sky separately manifested themselves. Within them, the demigods and others are also were manifested in terms of the modes of material nature.
आत्यान्तिकेन सत्त्वेन दिवं देवा प्रपीदिरे दरां राजस्वभावेन पनयो ये च ताननु.
The demigods, qualified by the super excellent quality of the modes of goodness, are situated in the heavenly planets, whereas the human beings, because of their nature in the modes of passion, live on the earth in company with their subordinates.
तातीयेन स्वभावेन भगवन्नाभिमाशिताः उभयोरन्तरं व्योम ये रुद्रापाशतां गणः.
Living entities who are associates of Rudra develop in the third mode of material nature or ignorance. They are situated in the sky between the earthly planets and the heavenly planets.
मुखतो वा तथा ब्रह्मा पुरुषस्य कुरुद्वः यस्तुन्मुखात् वर्णानां मुख्यो भूर्ब्राह्मणो गुरुः.
O chief of the Kuru dynasty, the Vedic wisdom became manifested from the mouth of the Virat, the gigantic form. Those who are inclined to this Vedic knowledge are called Brahmanas, and they are the natural teachers and spiritual masters of all the orders of society.
बाहुभ्यो वा तथा क्षत्रं क्षत्रियस्तदनुव्रतः यो जातस्त्रायते वर्णान् पौरवसः कान्तकाक्षतः.
Thereafter, the power of protection was generated from the arms of gigantic Virat form, and in relation to such power, the Kshatriya also came into existence by following the Kshatriya principles of protecting society from the disturbance of thieves and miscreants.
विशो वा तन्ततस्योर्वो लोकावृत्तिकरी विभुः वैश्यस्तदुद्भवो वार्तां या समवार्तयत्.
The means of livelihood of all persons, namely production of grains and their distribution to the prajas, was generated from the tides of the Lord gigantic form. The mercantile men who take charge of such execution are called Vaisyas.
पद्भ्यां भगवतो यज्ञे शुश्रूष्या धर्मसिद्धये तस्यां याता पुरा शूद्रो यद्वृत्त्या तुष्यते हरिः.
Thereafter, service was manifested from the legs of the personality of the Godhead for the sake of perfecting the religious function. Situated on the legs are the Sudras who satisfy the Lord by service.
एते वर्णा स्वधर्मेण यज्ञन्ति स्वगुरून् हरिं श्रद्धयात्मा विशुद्ध्यातं यजता सह वृत्तिभिः.
All these different social divisions are born with their occupational deities and living conditions from the Supreme Personality Godhead. Thus, for unconditioned life and self realization, one has to worship the Supreme Lord under the direction of the spiritual master.
एतक्षात्तर्भगवतो दैवाकर्मात्मरूपिणः काष्ठायाध्यादुपाकर्तुं योगमायाबलोदयम्.
O Vidura, who can estimate or measure the transcendental time, work, and potency of the gigantic form manifested by the internal potency of the Supreme Person of the Godhead?
तथापि कीर्तयाम्यङ्गा यथा मति यथा श्रुतं कीर्तिं हरेष्वां सत्कर्तुं गिरम् अन्याभिदात्सतीम्.
In spite of my inability, whatever I have been able to hear from the spiritual master and whatever I could assimilate, I am now describing in glorification of the Lord by pure speech. For otherwise, my power of speaking would remain unchaste.
एकान्तलाभं वचसो नुपुंसां शुश्लोकमौरेर्गुणवादमाहो श्रुतेश्च विद्वाभिरुपाकृतायं कथासुधायमुपसम्प्रयोग्यम्.
The highest perfectional gain of humanity is to engage in discussions of the activities and glories of the pious actor. Such activities are so nicely arranged in writing by the greatly learned sages that the actual purpose of the ear is served just by being near them.
आत्मनो वसितो वत्सा महिमा काव्यनादिना Samvatsara sahasrante diha yoga vipakaya.
O my son, the original poet, Brahma, after mature meditation for 1000 celestial years, could know only that the glories of the Supreme Soul are inconceivable.
Ato bhagavato maya mayanamapi mohini yatsvayam chatmavatmatma naveda kim mutapare.
The wonderful potency of the Supreme Person of the Godhead is bewildering even to the jugglers. That potency is unknown even to the self sufficient Lord, so it is certainly unknown to others.
Yato prapya nayatvartanta vachascha manasa saha aham chanye me devas tasmai bhagavate namaha.
Words, mind, and ego, with their respective controlling demigods, have failed to achieve success in knowing the Supreme Person of the Godhead. Therefore, we simply have to offer our respectful obeisances unto Him as a matter of sanity.
Right, Hare Krishna. Is that complete now, all the verses?
Hare Krishna, yes, Prabhuji. You're the host now. Thank you, Prabhuji.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you for reciting the verses so nicely. What do you think there? Shrika, is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah, how old are you?
Oh, I'm 12.
Oh, Shrika, you recited the verses very nice.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And please keep reciting the verses. It really does help you so much in so many ways, spiritually, of course. And thank you also, Vigat, for reciting the English. Hare Krishna, everyone. My name is Krishna Govinda Das. This is my humble obeisances. I'll go to Prabhupada and Guru Maharaj. I just share my page with all of you. Just let me know if you can see this. Yep, you can see that. Okay. Avajana Kanandasya Jadam Janashalakaya Kakshurmatam Yena Tasmai Shikarvai Namaha Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Ayam Namaskapcha Dharam Chaivanathanam Devim Saraswati Vyasam Tato Jayamudiraye Aishtaisho Bhadreshu Nitya Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavata Shloke Bhakti Bhavati Naishtake. Hare Krishna, everybody. Welcome to today's chat class, Sunday, 4th of January, 2025. Today, we'll be reading from, carrying on from Canto 3, Status Quo, Chapter 6, Creation of the Universal Form. And today's verses are 34, 35, and 36. So this is verse 34. Etevana swadhamena janti swagurum harim shradayatma vishuddhiyatam yashata sahavittivi. Translation. All these different social divisions are born with their occupational duties and living conditions from the Supreme Personality of Godhead. As from conditional life and self-realization, one has to worship the Supreme Lord under the direction of the Spiritual Master. Upheld by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Since they are born from different parts of the body of the Supreme Lord in this gigantic form, all living entities in all parts of the entire universe are supposed to be eternal servitors of the Supreme Body. Every part of our own body, such as the mouth, hands, thighs, and legs, is meant to render service to the whole. That is the constitutional position. In subhuman life, the living entities are not conscious of this constitutional position, but in the human form of life, they are supposed to know this through the system of the varnas, the social orders. As Bharat mentioned, the Brahmana is a special master for all the orders of society. This Brahmanical culture, culminating in the transcendental loving service of the Lord, is a basic principle for purifying the soul. In conditioned life, the soul is under the impression that he can become the Lord of the universe. And the last point of this misconception is to think oneself the supreme. The foolish conditioned soul does not take into account that the supreme cannot be conditioned by Maya or illusion. If the supreme were to become conditioned by illusion, where would be his supremacy? In that case, Maya or illusion would be the supreme. Therefore, because the living entities are conditioned, they cannot be supreme. The actual position of the conditioned soul is explained in this verse. All the conditioned souls are pure due to contact with the material energy, the three modes of nature. Therefore, it is necessary that they purify themselves under the guidance of the bona fide spiritual master, who not only is a Brahmana by qualification, but must also be a Vaishnava. The only self-purified process mentioned herein is to worship the Lord under the recognized method, under the guidance of the bona fide spiritual master. That is a natural way of purification, and no other method is recommended as bona fide. The other methods of purification may be helpful come to this stage of life, but ultimately one has to come to the last point before he attains actual perfection. Bhagavad Gita, chapter 7, verse 19, confirms this truth as follows. Bahunam janmanamante jnana vama prapachate vasudeva savamiti sa mahatma sudurlabha. Okay, I shall recite the invocation prayers. Please do join in if you want to. Om Jnana Timandasya Gyaranjana Shalakaya Chakshurmalitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Mano Bhishtam Shtapatam Yena Bhutale Swayam Nupakara Mayam Tadati Swapatantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Guru Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sagana Raghunatha Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Pada Sagana Lalita Shiva Shakamitamscha Hare Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Shirapate Gopesha Gopika Kata Radha Kata Namostate Aptakachana Gaurange Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vishabhanusate Devi Padamami Hare Priye Pancha Kalpataru Vyasya Kripa Sindhubhya Ivacha Patitana Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhaktivinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jai, my dear devotees. First of all, I'd like to offer my obeisances and prayers and seek the blessings of our special master, Srila Bhakti Swami, Namo Vishnupadaya, Vishnu Pishaya Bhutale, Shrimati Bhakti Swami Tanamane, to His God, Founder Acharya, Srila Prabhupada, Namo Vishnupadaya, Vishnu Pishaya Bhutale, Shrimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Tanamane, Namaste Saraswati Deve, Gaurvadi Pishayane, Nevashesasanyavade Pashacha Disatayane. And I kindly seek the blessings of all the Vaishnavas listening, so I am able to speak on the wonderful glories of the pastimes of Sri Krishna and his devotees from the Srimad Bhagavatam. So going back to this verse number 34. All these different social divisions are born for their occupational duties and living conditions from the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Thus, for unconditional life and self-realization, one has to worship the Supreme Lord under the direction of the Spiritual Master. So for this particular verse, I'm going to give a little synopsis of two of the points that's mentioned in the translation. The first one is discussing about the social division. And the second part is about the surrendering of an authorized spiritual master who is under the direction or under the authority of the Supreme Lord. So at the moment is a discussion between Maitreya Muni and Vidura. As we mentioned last week, a particular chapter for this canto is, or chapter, is status quo. This refers to the status of current affairs, both political and social. So in this case, Maitreya is discussing to Vidura about the four divisions of faith. Four divisions are normally known as Varnashram. Varna means a social class, social division, and ashram refers to the stage in a person's life. So for Varna, there's four stages. First of all, there's the Brahmanas, and they are represented, or they come under Lord Vishnu, and the head of Lord Vishnu is represented by the Brahmanas. The shoulders are represented by the second Varnas, which are the Kshatriyas. The third, which is referring to the thighs, is referred to the Vaishyas. And the legs of Lord Vishnu are represented by the Shudras. Now, who are the Brahmanas? The Brahmanas are the priests, they're the intellectuals, they're the ones who give the guidance, how to rule the kingdom, how to follow the injunctions based on the Vedas. And the Kshatriyas, they're the military leaders, they're the social leaders, they follow the instructions of the Brahmanas. By following the instructions of the Brahmanas, they are able to protect their kingdom, take care of the citizens on behalf of the kings as well. Thirdly, it's the Vaishyas. Vaishyas are referred to the merchants and the tradespeople. People are generally working in this modern day, people who are working in business are considered to be the Vaishyas as well. They're the ones who actually cultivate a lot of the trades that go between one country and another country, or one nation to another nation. And lastly, is the Shudras. Shudras normally do all the manual work, the laboring work, the farm work, etc. But sometimes there's another fifth division, which are known as the untouchables, which has actually come through over periods of social intervention between one society and another society, where they feel supremacy over another dominant Varna. And the untouchables were recognized as those who are considered to be militias, or people who are considered to be unclean, unworthy to do any parliamentary work, any work as a Kshatriya, or any work as a Vaishya. They were considered to be the street sweepers, those who clean all the toiletry systems, generally people who dig up the earth or bury or cremate all the dead bodies as well. They were recognized as the untouchables. And over time, historically, the untouchables were actually converted into different classes of different faiths, partly because of the way they were treated by the other upper classes of Varnas. But according to the Vedas, it actually showed that each of the Varnas had a particular position in their role, and they actually followed their roles as authorized by their spiritual teachers and authorities. And they actually worked side by side with each other. There was harmony. Nobody sort of, considered anybody to be higher or lower. Of course, from a humility point of view, they always considered the Brahmanas to be the leaders of the Varnas. And they also worked alongside each other, the Brahmanas and the Shudras. But somehow or another, the fifth generation developed, called the untouchables, and they were systematically been discriminated. They were sort of ostracized from society, considered to be outsiders, and weren't allowed to enter the premises of the city or the temples by the authorities. Thereby, by persuasion from other faiths like Christianity, Islam, Jainism, Buddhism, they converted their beliefs from Hinduism to become a devoted person into another faith. And when you actually look at a story from Srila Prabhupada, he also mentions about nowadays who is considered to be a real Brahmana. You know, you may be born in a Brahmana family, but it's not to say that you're a Brahmana automatically. Just like Prabhupada gives an example that your father may be a doctor, your father may be a surgeon, your father may be a particular qualified person, but that does not mean you automatically become that same sort of occupational as the same as your father. Rather, it's that to your education, right, to your training, your ability to be qualified in the same level as your father or your peers, that you take that role of that person. So if you are to be the son of a doctor, does not mean that you automatically become a doctor, but you train. You have to go through your education. You have to go through your pass your examinations, get the qualification of a doctorate. Then you become an official doctor and be recognized through certification. Similarly, you could not say that you could be a Kshatriya just because your father was a warrior. It takes a lot of courage, a lot of heroism to become a fighter. And you have to show yourself to be worthy to take the role of a fighter and be ready to fight your enemies at whatever cost it may be to protect your country and kingdom. And at the same time, Lord Srila Prabhupada, as I mentioned in his story, as a young boy, he always wanted to go to Jagannath Puri. And before he got married, he wanted that opportunity to go to Jagannath Puri, took a train all the way from Calcutta, where he was living, to Jagannath Puri. And his father, Govinda, they had an acquaintance who was living in Jagannath Puri. Prabhupada happened to stay there. But it just so happened when Prabhupada was staying there, even though they were religiously minded, they had a temple in their sort of accommodation, but when he saw some item in a pot that they were cooking, and then Prabhupada, or Abhay Charan, as his name was, he asked them, what is that piece of item on that pot? And they said, oh, it's only meat, don't worry about it. But Prabhupada became very upset to see that these people who claim to be very religious to be eating meat, eating fish in particular. And when he'd go to Jagannath Puri, he'd obviously pray to Lord Jagannath. He'd go there very often. On a daily basis, he'd get to be acquainted to the Brahmanas who are worshipping Lord Jagannath. But outside, when he'd see them on the street or by the Jagannath Puri beach, he'd see the same Brahmanas smoking. And he also considered, well, who is a true Brahmana? But the Brahmana is supposed to be qualified in a particular level of Brahmanical qualities. But here, are actually not observing the same qualities as they should have been, as written in the Vedas. So from the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 18, verses 42 onwards, it explains about the qualities of the Brahmanas, qualities of a Kshatriyas, qualities of a Vaishya, qualities of a Shudra. Does anybody want to read these 3 verses, the English translation? You're quiet.
What was the question, Prabhuji?
Would you like to read these 3 verses in English translation? These are the qualities of a Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra.
Okay, text 42.
Yes.
Peacefulness, self-control, austerity, purity, tolerance, honesty, knowledge, wisdom, and religiousness. These are the natural qualities by which the Brahmanas work. Text 43. Heroism, power, determination, resourcefulness, courage in battle, generosity, and leadership are the natural qualities of work for the Kshatriyas. Text 44. Farming, cow protection, and business are the natural work for the Vaishyas, and for the Shudras there are labor and service to others. Thank you, Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much for reciting that. So here it's supposing if you wanted to be a Brahmana, these are the qualities of being a Brahmana, peacefulness, self-control, austerity, etc. You may have one of those qualities to a certain degree, but out of humility, you may not tell anybody that you have these qualities. Normally, somebody who is of an authority would say, Prabhu, you're very self-controlled, Prabhu, you're full of austerity, you've got purity in your heart. But to have these qualities doesn't happen automatically overnight, neither is it through birthright. It is through practical and devotional practices that one attains these qualities. In the Varnashram system, at a young age, between 0 and 25, the children were sent to Gurukul, where they would be trained up in different arts of Vedic culture, to be trained up as a Brahmana, perhaps trained up as a Kshatriya, just like during the Mahabharata stories, it's mentioned about how the Kauravas and the Pandavas were sent under the guidance of Dronacharya to learn about the mastery of becoming a Kshatriya warrior. Only through the qualities of the past, by the mercy of the spiritual master, were they able to achieve the ability that they received. So similarly, when you become a Kshatriya, it's not just a matter of just picking up a sword and fighting. It requires a lot of heroism, a lot of power, a lot of determination, resourcefulness. And the same for learning how to farm, taking care of the cows, and business are the national work for the Vaishyas. So in all circumstances, just like the way you'll be trained up to become a character, to be an engineer, to become a doctor, lawyer, it doesn't happen overnight. You have to be trained up to be that particular role in your society. And also, when you do become that particular, how do you call it, that qualified person, then you have to show that same qualifications to somebody younger than you, and you can train them up as well in the same way. So earlier on, I was mentioning about the word Varnashram. Varna means the social life or the social society. Ashram refers to the life a person is in. So the four persons or the four stages of life that one goes through. The first is the brahmachari stage. That's normally from 0 to 25 years of age. From 25 to 50, then you get to the next stage, which is when you become married, grihastha. Then you come to the renounced stage, which is from 50 to 75. And then 75 onwards, you take full renunciation from your family, from your business, from all the properties, from all your wealth, and become completely surrendered, detached, and focus on attaining spiritual perfection. And that is the stage of sannyas. Of course, many of us may not be able to even go past a certain stage, but the Krishna consciousness is done in such a way that Srila Prabhupada explained that whatever stage of life you're in, just learn how to surrender yourself fully to Krishna. And I'll give you an example later on how that is possible. So the next stage I was mentioning to you, we were talking about Varnashram. The next part I was going to discuss about the importance of the spiritual master. So that's for a conditional life and self-realization, one has to worship the Supreme Lord under the direction of the spiritual master. So when you read the Srimad Bhagavatam, you hear wonderful stories of the stories of, say, Dhruva Maharaj, Prahlad Maharaj, many other personalities. They all came under the guidance of a spiritual authority. And in this case, for Dhruva Maharaj and Prahlad Maharaj, Narada Muni was a spiritual authority. There was a spiritual authority for many personalities, just like Bhagavad Dahanta, and also Valmiki in his previous life. Narada Muni tried to explain to you about killing these animals or half killing these animals. And then in his next life, through purification, reciting of the holy names of Lord Rama, from being a killer of animals, he became Valmiki Muni. Similarly, ourselves and our spiritual goals in our life, our spiritual life is complete when we come under the authority of a spiritual teacher. We mentioned about the different sampradayas previously, and then within the sampradaya, You have to have somebody who's qualified, who's following the scriptures, who comes from the lineage from the Supreme Personality of Godhead himself. Just like in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna tells Arjuna, I first spoke the spiritual science of yoga to the sun god, Vivishwan. Vivishwan instructed it to Manu, the father of mankind. And Manu in turn instructed it to his son, Ishwaku. So the supreme science has passed from generation to generation. And of course, in due course of time, the science was lost, but then it got revived through different personalities, different expressions coming from the Supreme Lord who revived the spiritual scriptures again. So once again, the Bhagavad Gita Krishna mentions that just try to approach a bona fide spiritual master far from him submissively, when the service unto him, the self-realized soul can impart knowledge unto you because he has seen the truth. So this is very important because just like the way Arjuna, he may have been a Kshatriya, he may have been a warrior, was ready to fight. There was no person who could defeat him. In fact, there was a story just before they wanted to reclaim their kingdom back again, when they were incognito. Duryodhana had sent his whole army to find out where they were, and they came across this kingdom, and they were protected by the Pandavas who were incognito. And Arjuna single-handedly defeated all of them, Duryodhana, Bhishma, Karna. He was that powerful. He defeated all of them. But yet, when he came to the battlefield of Kurukshetra, when he saw his own spiritual teacher, when he saw his grandfather, Bhishma Dev, his cousins, he said, why should I be fighting these personalities? You know, it's better that they win this kingdom rather than me sort of kill them. That's what is the use of winning a kingdom if they're all dead. But somehow or another, Krishna, of course, the supreme spiritual master, living in the hearts of every living entities, explained to him all the yoga system, and Arjuna became submissive and he surrendered unto the Supreme Lord, who he seemed as a friend all his lifetime. So seeing the Supreme Lord as a spiritual teacher also teaches us that we should also have a spiritual authority. That's so important. Why is that? Because it says that the authorized spiritual master is bona fide, is supposed to be or is as good as God, and he should be worshipped as good as God. Why is that? Because he's the eternal servant of the Lord. And that comes from the prayers by Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti from the Sri Guru Vaishnava. Shaksha Darirve Nashamasya Shastra Uksas Tata Bhav Yateva Sadi. In the verse, I'll just read it out to you. Translation: the spiritual master is to be honored as much as the Supreme Lord, as the most confidential, because he is the most confidential servant of the Lord. This is acknowledged in all revealed scriptures and followed by all authorities. Therefore, I offer my respectful obeisances to such a lotus feet of a spiritual master. And the last verse from the Sri Guru Vaishnava is the most important verse. Yasha Pashada, Bhagava Pashada, Yasha Pashada, Nagati Gopi, Ayashtavam Tasha, Yasha Sanya, Vande Garoshi, Charanarvindam. By the mercy of the spiritual master, one receives the benediction of Krishna. That the grace of the spiritual master cannot make any advancement. Therefore, I should always remember, praise the spiritual master at least 3 times a day. I should offer my respectful obeisances to the lotus feet of my spiritual master. So you can see the spiritual master is not an ordinary person, but he is the confidential servant of the Lord. He's an authority as acknowledged by the scriptures and by the authorities. And then you cannot receive any benediction of Krishna without the praise of the spiritual master. And this is very important. Now, it's not just an emphasis, try to get everybody to get initiated, try to accept an authority, try to get a spiritual name. Sometimes it can be a fashionable thing. It is important in your own day-to-day practice of spiritual journey to become purified, to become closer to Krishna. You have to eventually take that step to show that you are dedicated, to show you are determined, to show that you are serious about your spiritual practices. Now, it's also important to understand you may have the spiritual master who may initiate you and give you a spiritual name, but it's also which is considered to be the Shiksha Guru. But it's also important to understand the Diksha Guru, the one who teaches you instructions. Now, our own spiritual master, His Holiness Bhaktacharya Swami, many times he told his disciples in our disciples meeting, just don't think of me as a spiritual master. I may have given you Diksha, I may have given you a spiritual name. You are under the shelter of Srila Prabhupada. Also consider Srila Prabhupada as your Param Guru. But just as importantly, you should take shelter and treat each person as a spiritual authority, whether it's a temple president, whether it's your temple commander, whether it's a Sankirtan leader, or it's your mentor, because they're giving you instructions from their own authorities, who in this disciplic succession are trying to cultivate you, trying to spend their spiritual time and energy to motivate you in your spiritual journey as well, allows you to connect it to the Vaishnava Sampradaya. So it's important to understand, you may have your Shiksha Guru, you may have your Diksha Guru, but it's important to understand that we should try and treat everybody or spiritual authority to be like a spiritual authority, like a spiritual master as well. We should offer our respects to them, because ultimately it's not that they want some name, fame, recognition, but they're doing it on behalf of our spiritual master. It's like any service, like Krishna tells Arjuna, Yad Gurushi, Yad Shtashi, Yad Jajoshi, Dadasi, Yad Tapasya, Kuntiya, Yad Gurushvamadarpanam. Whatever you do, whatever you eat, whatever you offer or give away, whatever austerities you perform, do that Usadkuntiya as an offering to me. So that offering actually goes to Krishna. So when you do an offering, you offer it to Krishna by the medium of the spiritual master. The spiritual master accepts whatever offering you've given it, and he passes it on to Krishna. So although the mercy is passed on to the spiritual master, but out of kindness, Krishna sees your endeavor and he returns that favor to you. Whatever, however you surrender to me, I reward them accordingly. And he mentions that, so the more you surrender to your spiritual master, the more you surrender to Krishna, the more he will reward you in your spiritual journey, your spiritual ambition. Now, I'll go into the next verse now. Okay, actually, I just wanted to just touch a little thing on this. Basically, somewhere here mentioned about using every part of our body, every part of our own body, such as the mouth, hands, thighs, and legs, is meant to render service to the whole. Now, there's a beautiful verse from the Srimad Bhagavatam. I could find it. Okay. This is from Srimad Bhagavatam. It's actually Canto 9, Chapter 4, verses 18 to 20. Okay, and this is a discussion about Maharaj Ambarish. Maharaj Ambarish always engaged his mind in meditating upon the lotus feet of Krishna. His words in describing the glories of the Lord, his hands in cleansing the Lord's temple, and his ears in hearing the words spoken by Krishna or about Krishna. He engaged his eyes in seeing the deity of Krishna, Krishna's temples, and Krishna's places like Mathura or Vrindavan. He engaged his senses of touch in touching the bodies of the Lord's devotees. He engaged his sense of smell in smelling the fragrance of tulsi offered to the Lord. He engaged his tongue in tasting the Lord's prasad. He engaged his legs in walking to the holy places and temples of the Lord. His head in bowing down before the Lord, and all his desires in serving the Lord 24 hours a day. Indeed, Maharaj Ambarish never desired anything for his own sense gratification. He engaged all his senses in devotional service in various engagements related to the Lord. This is the way to increase attachment for the Lord and be completely free from all material desires. So you can see wonderfully how it's explained how Maharaj Ambarish used every part of his senses, every part of his organs in pursuing and serving or seeing or touching anything which is associated with the Lord. And this is how our mood should be as well. Using our hands to place the Lord's temple, our ears to hear the words spoken by Krishna, our eyes to see the beautiful form of the Lord, the temples especially, and engage in our senses in touching the bodies of the Lord's devotees. So everything we have, all the senses that we have, as explained in the verse that we were reading, be part of our own body, such as the mouth, hands, thighs, and legs, is meant to render service to the whole. And why is Prabhupada emphasizing that? Because the reason being is because when we are born, although our original constitutional position of the soul is pure, but because of our conditioning, being born into this material world, it is covered by the three modes of nature: goodness, passion, and ignorance. So therefore, it is full of amartas, full of lust, full of envy, which is accumulated from many, many lifetimes. We have to purify ourselves, free ourselves from this three modes of material nature by saying that the Supreme Lord can be engaged in every part of our body, from where we can, 24 hours a day. I know in this busy life that we lead in, we have a family commitments, we have a financial commitments, we have a health commitments, social, work, occupational duties, so many duties, so many responsibilities, taking care of our parents, grandparents, our children, nephews. For some or another, if you can engage yourself in some way to serve these, those who are related to you, perhaps you're at work, you can kind of give books or prasadam to your colleagues who may be favorable, to your parents, to your grandparents who may not be so inclined in practicing Krishna consciousness because they see it as just a cultural thing. Give them prasadam, engage them in devotional service, encourage them to come to the temple, perform devotional service, get them attached to some sanghas, which are for those like-minded in that particular social circle of life. Engage your children and come to Krishna Club, engage them into devotional service, participate in festivals at home, at the temple, wherever you may be. So many ways you can engage your friends, family, colleagues in this way in serving Krishna. Okay, so let's go back onto this first verse. Prabhupada quoted this particular verse. Bahunam Jamanamante. Now, would anyone know what the translation is for this verse? Okay, I'll share it with you. After many births and deaths, he was actually acknowledged, so they said to me, know me to be the cause of all causes, and all that is. Such a great soul is very rare. So here, once again, after many births and deaths, when we surrender to Krishna, he knows, or rather he knows that he is the cause of all causes. That soul is very rare. So if you look at many lifetimes that we've gone through, birth after birth, different forms of species of life, perhaps a plant, a bird, an animal, reptile, amphibian, insect, in this very rare form of human life, should take this opportunity to understand more and more about the wonderful, glorious blossoms of Krishna. From the rising to the setting of the sun, diminishes the duration of one's existence unless he is engaged in the wonderful, glorious discussing the topics of Lord Vishnu. So every second of our life will just die away. So we have to try best to engage in ourselves and serve Krishna. As all are surrendered to me, I shall reward them accordingly, as I mentioned earlier on. And the other verses from Chaitra Shloka, there's those who are constantly devoted to serving me with love. I give them the understanding by which they come to me. To show them special mercy, I, dwelling in the hearts, destroy with a shining lamp of knowledge. Darkness born of ignorance. Yeah. Now going back onto the next verse, which I'm reading, which is verse 35. Ita shata bhagavato deva karmana rupina yashadaya tupakarta yoga maya balodayam. Translation: O Vidura, who can estimate or measure the transcendental time work and potency of the gigantic form manifested by the eternal potency of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Purport. The foggish philosophers may go on with their mental speculation and subject matter of the Virat, the gigantic form exhibited by the Yogamaya, eternal potency of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But factually, no one can measure such a vast exhibition. In Bhagavad Gita, chapter 11, verse 16, Arjuna, the recognized devotee of the Lord, says, Aneka bahudara vatra netra pashyami tva savato nantarupam nantam namadyam na punastavadev pashyami vishvarupa. O my Lord, O gigantic Vishvarupa form, O Master of the universe, I see innumerable hands, bodies, mouths, and eyes in all directions, and they are all unlimited. I cannot find the end of this manifestation, nor do I see the middle, nor the beginning. Bhagavad Gita was specifically spoken to Arjuna, and the Vishvarupa was exhibited before him at his request. He was awarded specific eyes to see this Vishvarupa, but although he was able to see the Lord's innumerable hands and mouths, he was unable to see him completely. Since Arjuna was unable to estimate the length and breadth of the potency of the Lord, who else would be able to do so? One may only indulge in this calculation like the frog philosopher. The frog philosopher wanted to estimate the length and breadth of the Pacific Ocean by his experience of a well 3 cubic feet large, and thus he began to puff himself up to become as big as the Pacific Ocean. But at last he burst and died by this process. This story is applicable to the mental philosophers who, under the illusion of the Lord's external energy, indulge in estimating the length and breadth of the Supreme Lord. The best path is to become cool-headed, submissive devotee of the Lord. Try to hear about the Lord from the bona fide spiritual master, and thus serve the Lord transcendental love and service as suggested in the previous verse. And just for time, I'm just going to read the next verse, and if we do have a few minutes, I'll just explain what I can on these verses. Verse number 36. Tatapi kirtayami anga yata mati yata shutam kirtim hari swav sat kurtam giramanya vida shatim. Translation. In spite of my inability, whatever I have been able to hear from the spiritual master, whatever I could assimilate, I'm now describing in glorification of the Lord by pure speech. Otherwise, my power of speaking would remain unchanged. Purport. The purification of the conditioned soul necessitates purification of its consciousness. By the presence of consciousness, the presence of the transcendental soul is verified. And as soon as consciousness leaves the body, the material body is not active. Consciousness is perceived, therefore, by activities. The theory put forward by empiric philosophers that consciousness can remain in an inactive state, the proof of their poor fund of knowledge. One should not become unchanged by stopping the activities of pure consciousness. If the activities of pure consciousness are stopped, certainly the conscious living force will be otherwise engaged, because unless engaged, the consciousness has no standing. Consciousness cannot be silent, even for a moment. When the body does not act, the consciousness acts in the form of dreams. Unconsciousness is artificial. By induced extraneous help, it remains for a limited period, but when the intoxication of the drug is finished, when one is awake, the consciousness again acts earnestly. Maitreya's statement in that order to avoid and chase conscious activities, he was trying to describe the unlimited glories of the Lord. Although he did not have the ability to describe them perfectly, this glorification of the Lord is not a product of research, but the result of hearing submissively from the authority of the spiritual master. It is also not possible to repeat all that one has heard from the spiritual master, but one can narrate as far as possible on one's honest endeavor. It does not matter whether the Lord's glories are fully explained or not. One must attempt to engage one's bodily, mental, and verbal activities in the transcendental glorification of the Lord. Otherwise, such activities will remain unchaste and impure. Existence of the conditioned soul can be purified only by the method of engaging mind and speech in the service of the Lord. The true sannyasi of the Vaishnava school accepts 3 rods, representing the vow to engage in the service of the Lord with body, mind, and speech, where Sekadandi sannyasi takes the vow to become one with the Supreme. Since the Lord is the Absolute, there is no distinction between him and his glories. Glories of the Lord, as judged by the Vaishnava sannyasi, are as substantial as the Lord himself. Thus, while glorifying the Lord, the devotee becomes one with him in transcendental interests. Although he remains eternally transcendental servitor, this simultaneously one and different position of the devotees makes him eternally purified, and thus his life becomes a complete success. Jai Shema Bhagavatam Ki Jai Janita Gopramanandi. I think it's coming to 22.8. I just pass it on to the devotees who are going to be singing today. Thank you very much for singing.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Mandanot Pranam, oh glory to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you so much Prabhuji for wonderfully explaining the verses as always. Is it okay to start the bhajan, and if anybody has questions we can ask after the bhajan, Prabhuji?
Yes, sure, that's fine. Thank you very much.
Thank you Prabhuji. Hare Krishna, thank you Prabhuji.
Thank you, Hare Krishna.
So for today's bhajan, we have our dear Mamta Mataji who will be singing a beautiful bhajan, Doyal Nitai Chaitanya. But before she sings the bhajan, I'm going to do the English translation if that's okay. Thank you, Jyoti Mataji. Okay. Bhajan Doyal Nitai Chaitanya. Translation. Chanting the holy name, Doyal Nitai Chaitanya. Oh my mind, please dance. Oh my mind, please dance. Oh my mind, please dance. Oh, such a merciful personality as Nityananda Prabhu is not to be found anywhere. He suffers a beating from Jagai and Madhai and still gives them the love of God. Oh, when your offenses are being vanquished, you will obtain the treasure of the love of God. But in these names of Chaitanya and Nitai, there is no consideration of offenses. Once you have a taste for the holy name of Krishna, bondage to this world will come to an end. Oh, when there is an attachment to the holy name of Krishna, the life of a living being very easily becomes successful. Oh, without affection for Krishna, life is simply useless. At the end of the life, you will obtain the beautiful vision of Radha and Shyama in Vrindavana, but only when the mercy of Lord Gaura is first received. Oh, Hare Krishna. On to you, Mamta Mataji, when you're ready. Thank you.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you, Jyoti Mataji, for the translation. And as usual, Prabhuji, a wonderful class. And my Haribol to all the devotees who are present here. Today, I just tried to sing this song. It's a lovely song, but I hope I'll be able to do some justice to it. It's actually a Kirtan song. So I'll be humming in behind, so in between, so that would represent all of you. So maybe behind the muted mics, you all can follow me too. May I have the permission to start, Prabhuji?
Yes, go ahead, Mataji, please.
Hare Krishna.
You don't need my permission.
Shri Gaur Nitai ki jai. Doyal Nitai Chaitanya bole nach re amar man. Doyal Nitai Chaitanya bole nach re amar man. Doyal Nitai Chaitanya bole nach re amar man. Nach re amar man. Nach re amar man. Nach re amar man. नाच रे अमर मान दयाल निताय चैतन्य बोले नाच रे अमर मान दयाल निताय चैतन्य बोले नाच रे अमर मन दयाल तो नहीं है दयाल तो नहीं है मन दयाल तो नहीं है दयाल तो नहीं है मार्खे प्रेम दे दयाल तो नहीं है मार्खे प्रेम दे দয়াল তো নাই হে মার খেয়ে প্রেমে দে দয়াল তো নাই হে মার খেয়ে প্রেমে দে দয়াল তো নাই ওরে অপরাধ দূরে যাবে পাবে প্রেম ধান অপরাধ দূরে যাবে পাবে প্রেম ধান ওরে অপরাধ দূরে যাবে পাবে প্রেম ধান অপরাধ দূরে যাবে পাবে প্রেম ধান দয়াল নিতাই চৈতন্য বলে নাচ রে আমার মন দয়াল নিতাই চৈতন্য বলে নাচ রে আমার মন 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 দয়াল নিতাই চৈতন্য বলে নাচ রে আমার মন নিতাই চৈতন্য বলে নাচ রে আমার মন विचार तो नहीं है विचार तो नहीं है विचार तो नहीं है विचार तो नहीं है ओ नामे अपराध विचार तो नहीं है ओ नामे अपराध विचार तो नहीं ओ नामे अपराध विचार तो नहीं है ओ नामे अपराध विचार तो তখন কৃষ্ণ নামে রুচি হবে ঘুচিবে বন্ধন কৃষ্ণ নামে রুচি হবে ঘুচিবে বন্ধন তখন কৃষ্ণ নামে রুচি হবে ঘুচিবে বন্ধন কোন কৃষ্ণ নামে রুচি হবে ঘুচি বন্ধন দয়াল নিতাই চৈতন্য বলে নাচ রে আমার মন দয়াল নিতাই চৈতন্য বলে নাচ রে আমার মন 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 দয়াল নিতাই চৈতন্য বলে নাচ রে আমার মন দয়াল নিতাই চৈতন্য বলে নাচ রে আমার মন অনুরক্ত হবে হে অনুরক্ত হবে হে অনুরক্ত হবে হে অনুরক্ত হে হে কৃষ্ণ নামে অনুরক্ত হবে হে কৃষ্ণ নামে অনুরক্ত হবে হে কৃষ্ণ নামে অনুরক্ত হবে হে কৃষ্ণ নামে অনুরক্ত তখন অনায়াসে সফল হবে জীবের জীবন অনায়াস সফল হবে জীবের জীবন তখন অনায়াসে সফল হবে জীবের জীবন তখন অনায়াসে সফল হবে জীবের জীবন জীবনত মিছে হে জীবনত মিছে হে মিছে হে জীবনত মিছে কৃষ্ণ রতি বিনা জীবনত মিছে হে 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 বৃন্দাবনে রাধা শ্যামের পাবে দর্শন এসে বৃন্দাবন রাধা শ্যামের পাবে দর্শন বৃন্দাবন রাধা শ্যামের পাবে দর্শন এসব বৃন্দাবন রাধা শ্যামের পাবে দর্শন গৌরা কৃপা হলে হে গৌরা কৃপা হলে হে গৌরা কৃপা হলে হে গৌরা কৃপা হলে তবে গৌরা কৃপা হলে হে কৃপা হলে বৃন্দাবনে রাধা শ্যামের পাবে দর্শন এসে বৃন্দাবন রাধা শ্যামের পাবে দর্শন বৃন্দাবন রাধা শ্যামের পাবে দর্শন এসে বৃন্দাবন রাধা শ্যামের পাবে দর্শন গৌরা কৃপা হলে হে গৌরা কৃপা হলে হে গৌরা কৃপা হলে হে যবে গৌরা কৃপা হলে হে ও গৌরা কৃপা হলে হে গৌরা কৃপা হলে হে গৌরা কৃপা হলে হে গৌরা কৃপা হলে হে ও গৌরা কৃপা হলে হে गौर कृपा होने दयाल निताय चैतन्य बोले नाच रे আমার মন निताय चैतन्य बोले नाच रे আমার মন 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 जय निताय चैतन्य बोले नाच रे আমার মন 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 निताय गौरंगा बोल निताय गौरंगा निताय गौरंगा बोल निताय गौरंगा 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 जय सच्चिदानंद जय सच्चिदानंद जय सच्चिदानंद गौर हरि जय सच्चिदानंद गौर हरि जय सच्चिदानंद गौर हरि जय सच्चिदानंद गौर हरि गौर हरि गौर हरि नित्य गौर हरि बोल हरि बोल नित्य गौर हरि बोल नित्य गौर हरि बोल हरि बोल हरि बोल नित्य गौर हरि बोल प्रेम से कहो नित्य गौर नित्य की जय थैंक यू सो मच
Hari Bol,
Hare Krishna.
Mataji. Beautiful singing, Mataji. So much
Thank
with
you,
love and
Sati.
dedication for Krishna and Radharani. Hari Bol, Mataji.
Thank you so much. Sorry.
No, that was so beautifully sung. Thank you, Mataji. I'm so glad that you put your mobile phone on, or sorry, your screen on, because as I was explaining, that devotion, that love, that love comes naturally the more you surrender to Krishna. It's not just ordinary words, these are no different from the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So when you recite these words, when you feel them, it resonates within your heart, and you certainly show that so nicely. So perhaps everybody could unmute themselves and just say thank you and Hare Krishna to Bhakti for singing so nicely. Hare
Hare
Krishna.
Krishna.
Thank you. So much love and devotion. And also to all of you as well, keep practicing, keep chanting, keep reading, hearing the holy names of the Lord. And all the devotees are there to support you. We're always there. And thank you so much for joining in with that fell every time on these chat sessions. So do have a wonderful week. Krishna Mahamadavi says, Acha Kalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai. Hare
Thank you
Krishna,
very
everyone.
much. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna. Thank you, Mamta Mataji. Wonderful bhajan and very emotional. I was touched. Thank you.
Thank you, Mataji. Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone, for listening.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Krishna.